Dualistic Unity Social, episode 4. This one being about an hour and a half to 2 hours after the last episode. We've had a Patreon group since then. We've gotten a little bit more into the topic of perception and the role of the perceiver. I'm very excited about this conversation because I know it's really an important one. It's a relationship that I have pondered for a very long time, and it's led me to a lot of different insights about myself, but it's also required a great deal of self-honesty and letting go of my own preference. And so I'm glad we're at this point, because this is where things become really grounded. This is one of the reasons that while I will, in the comment section of, say, Instagram or something like that, go to town on somebody who is just willfully being a dick, I will also act with a certain degree of hesitancy and empathy with somebody who just has a perspective that's just a little lost, and lost, by lost, I mean just lost in self-definition or a need for false certainty or something like that. And, so it's very much, it's a different approach as you see more and more of exactly how easy it is to get caught up in a perception and to take it as truth. You really do feel for people.
Yeah, and I'm getting a little bit of background noise from your side a bit. It came and went this morning, so it may just work itself out. But yeah, that perceiver perceived. I don't think I've ever understood what you meant by that until now. Not in the sense of not understanding like the perceiver perceived relationship, but the shift and there's a phrase that you've said before, like the perception you're taking will always, or the spot in which you're perceiving something will always validate the perception that comes with it. There's a degree of validation there, and I've never really understood it. I think because I've discounted certain perception or perceiver point of views, like the perception being the perceiver of the individual, understanding that is like that's as equally as reasonable of a spot to take as the perception of the whole or the entirety. And I don't know, like I've been avoiding that perception because there's a lot that comes with it and a lot of shit that comes with perceiving yourself as separate, despite it not being the reality. It is the reality of the experience that we're going through, but it's just one perception, one point of view out of the infinite. And we can get caught in thinking that the one perception we're on right now is the all of everything, because it is that real feeling that we can get caught in thinking like that's it, like that's all there is that. And then like the judgment comes in when you recognize other perceptions, because, and this is just me speaking from my experience, because I think it's like I take it as like an avoidance tactic, as I was saying, as opposed to just understanding that it's another way of seeing things. And I feel like there's been points where I've thought that that's the only true way of seeing things. It's like there's no true way other than the way that you're seeing it, because the way that you're seeing it is the way that it's being seen. So it's as true as any other means of perceiving something. And so yeah, it's definitely been interesting recognizing that, like, the all of everything includes everything, includes all perceptions, all degrees of perceiver perceived, like it's all in there, and it all has varying degrees of weight. And it's almost like the more honed in you get, the more potential for weight there is, but there's also the more potential for empathy and understanding. And it's a varying degree of that experience of being eternity. Like, being eternity involves different depths of experience. So of course it has to involve everything and every degree of a component of an illusion. That even that, like the illusion, it's like as real as any other perception. So it's not, I think I was maintaining like illusion versus reality. And it's like they're all components of it's all still reality.
It's all you. It's all you. It always will be you. And that's kind of it. But yeah, perception, right? Because it is the next part to thinking about yourself differently. Is that hum still coming through, by the way?
When you first unmuted, it was super loud, but then it died off a bit. And I still hear it a bit, but it's not.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Ever since we got off our Zoom call, so my computer's trying to download that last group that we were in, so that's what you're hearing there. So we're just going to deal with it nonetheless. But yeah, perspective. It's the understanding that because you are the all of everything, focused on a single point of you versus reality, the observer versus the observed, you have the infinite spectrum of what could be interpreted by the observed and the observer, right? So for you to go into an experience where you feel afraid, for example, you have to perceive yourself as something that can be afraid, right? The perception and the perceiver go hand in hand. And often we try to change the perception, not recognizing it's reflective of the perceiver that we're voluntarily attaching ourselves to. We just don't recognize we're voluntarily attaching ourselves to. And yes, this is the thing. This is why the word illusion is so very dangerous. It's as real as you are. In fact, it is literally you. Right? So when you perceive something to be dangerous, that is the reality that you are experiencing. But that doesn't mean that's the all and everything of the reality that you're experiencing. Right? It's just the facet of the diamond that you're focused on. So you're seeing light through that one angle, and you're not seeing all the different angles that still exist as you.
Yeah. And so getting caught on a specific perception and then running from that, thinking that's the illusion, it's like like in the diamond example, the light coming through one side, the illusion isn't the side that you're looking at. The illusion is that that's all there is. Right? Like the illusion that that is the entirety of perspective is
Correct.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. And that's why I've often said that the whole thing about hell is that it's the perspective that what you're feeling now is all you'll ever feel, because it's who you are. It's literally the prison. That's all it is. And depression is deepening that prison in itself. Like that's what it is oh my God, I'm never going to change anything, I'm doomed. And all of it just becomes this justification for remaining in the perception that you're in. And so that's happening individually, and it's happened collectively. Our current perspective of humanity is another prison that we've settled on.
Yeah, so it's always that point of view that like the perspective that you're taking is the entirety. It's that one side out of the infinite number of sides of potential perspectives is it. Like that's the only thing. And so whether it's you perceiving yourself in a specific way, you even thinking that your personal point of view, whatever iteration of that you're experiencing is the entirety of everything. It's like that's where the illusion lies is in that this feeling is the only feeling there is, that this way of seeing this is the only way of seeing this. Because I think for me at least, I was taking the point of view that like there's seeing things from, being reality, being the universe, being God, being whatever is the truth, and everything besides that is a component of the illusion. But even that, even the thought of seeing things from the perspective of the whole being not an illusion is an illusion that I was investing in.
There is no perception as the whole. All of the illusion is based on the perception of division. Right? Without division, there is no perception. There is no perceived or perceiver. There is just what is. All of this exists by virtue of what is infinitely potential.
Yeah, there is no view as the whole. You can't have a view as the whole. You can recognize it and in a sense, but like not even. And now like yeah. I'm realizing like I had settled upon something that wasn't it either. And seeing
Yeah,
that,
you'll do it again.
yeah, I know.
I'll do it again. That's the whole point, right? Which is the fun of the journey, which is why it's never about achieving a certain end point. Like it's never about achieving a certain perspective of everything. It really is about surrendering to the flow of what you are. That's all this is at the end of the day. It's not about getting to the point where you're like, I am the all of everything. It's about removing all of the walls so that all you have is the all of everything. Right? And you're dancing in it or you're getting sucked into it. But that's really what it is. You're either reinforcing the prison or you're setting yourself free. But to be free is to be uncertain because uncertainty and potential go hand in hand. You can't have infinite potential and certainty about that potential. That immediately limits it.
Ah, fucking A. How do you, it's like, fuck, how do you even communicate that? I'm like sitting here on our 250th episode or whatever it is, and I'm wondering how the fuck we even talk about this, right? Like, how do you even try and say it if it can't be something? Because I think, yeah, like I was taking the perspective that it was it was something, and then it got, you know, ground floor got fucking taken out underneath me. It's like, no, it's not that either, Andrew. Uh-uh.
So if it's not about the words and it's not about the concepts and it's not about a particular perception, what's it about? What's left?
What is me here
You.
now?
You're left. It's about you being what you are, not thinking about it, not trying to change it, not trying to, come up with answers, not trying to solve it. It's not a problem. It just comes down to you. And all of this podcast has been you just discovering that there's nothing you need to do. You're already doing it all week long, if not for months now. People have been saying, like, holy shit, Andrew, thank you so much for showing vulnerability. And in those moments, you're just like, I'm not doing anything. But you are. And you don't see it. The narrative doesn't see it. It's always going to downplay it because you expect something else of yourself. You have this ideal of perfection. You have this idea of enlightenment. You have this idea of some non-existent reality, or rather hypothetical reality that is only a single fragment of that diamond. And so this is why the retreats that we host are so important, because it's not what we're talking about at the retreats. It's being. It's being what we are. It's the practice of it. It's the experience of it. The actual, genuine, authentic, fiery, goddamn experience of being. Because it is. It's intense. And there's a lot to it. And life is fulfilling moment to moment to moment without there being any reason for it to be. But, it's a lot. And there is no way to communicate it. All you can do is be it. Right. And you can talk about it. You can look at it from infinite different angles. And all you've heard, especially in season 1 and season 2 of the podcast, was all the angles that I had kind of been exploring for as long as I had been around. Right now, I'm just looking at other angles, but you'll notice that the attitude towards it is the same. It is what it is. Right. I don't need to get caught up in my preferences and opinions of it. It is what it is, which is me. So the only most important part about this is just be yourself. You're already everything you're supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like such a different point of view. It's funny how you don't even realize when you're getting caught in stuff, how much you may be getting caught. And I think that's been a part of the shaking, is like, in order to feel like things are changing, you had to have been holding on to something that you think wasn't. Despite it always doing it, you were able to maintain the perspective. I was able to maintain the perspective that it wasn't, that it was like that understanding that none of it being it was it, but then it was it. And then it's kind of, and yeah, now I'm just like feel confused as part of me feels like confused as fuck about it. All of
No,
like,
you just have the temptation to reach for some answer. Like that's all this is that your brain's just like, no, there's got to be something to grab onto. It's just here. The conversation is the important part. Being what you are is the important part. That's all this comes down to at the end of the day. And your brain's just like, but journey and value and certainty and people and what is it? That all unfolds, but it unfolds as a result of what you're doing now.
yeah, I know. Yeah. Oh, it's not satisfying to not be able to fucking settle on even the littlest bit of even what's happening. It's just happening. And even trying to say it, yeah, it's just like there's nothing to do. There's nothing to say. And I guess it's still a lot of because a lot of people say it's something. They have they come up with an answer that's they settle on that. And so when you see someone doing that and you respond and say, well, that's not it either. And they're like, well, so is that it? Is you recognizing that it's not it? Is you recognizing that there's not an answer? You're saying that that's the answer. So now you think and I guess it's kind of like you said this a couple weeks ago. Um, when someone says you don't like not having a belief is a belief. It's like, no, it's not. And what you said, I think it was something along the lines of it's as if saying that not playing a sport is a sport. Right. And so it's because it's not obviously fucking not playing a sport isn't a sport. And yet we're so caught in beliefs and wanting certainty that we think that there must be something that is, but none of them are. Just like not playing a sport isn't a fucking sport. Not having a belief isn't a belief. It's just what is. It's just continuing on. It's just continuing to do it and continuing to be it without holding yourself back from being the entirety of it as what you are, which is always the entirety of it, no matter how you're conceptualizing and no matter how you're thinking about it, no matter what you're going through, you're still it. But that isn't something you can hold on to either. It's like it is the reality regardless of you thinking about it. And I guess maybe I was thinking about it a lot, like trying to hold on to that as being it, despite just allowing it to be it. And because it's not satisfying to understand that you can't settle on that either. Like there's nothing to settle upon. I've probably said that a million times in the last couple of years, but it's like it's different this time for some reason.
Indeed. Indeed, it is. It's a deepening of the same experience, but each time, remember, I've said to you in the past that there have been so many moments where I've come up to recognize that I'm holding on to something. And I've asked myself, like, really, even that? Like, even that is something I'm holding on to? Because you almost didn't want to look at it, right? And you're right, it's extremely unsatisfying. It's extremely unsatisfying in the same way that freedom is unsatisfying because there is no longer a journey to freedom. See, as long as there's a journey to freedom, we're like, I'm getting somewhere and I'm getting away from something. But the experience of freedom itself, and people don't often think about this, is like, what are you going to do with your life once you have a cessation of suffering and complaints? Do you think that complaints are just not going to be at your disposal anymore? Like, it's amazing how often we'll squander freedom not recognizing it's a constant state of being. right? That we have the freedom to look at any perspective we want all the time, right? And so that's uncomfortable. We don't like it. It's unsatisfying. There's got to be a journey, and so we make one. Even the journey to being present, which is fucking hilarious at the end of the day. But no, this is the serious end of this conversation. This is where things stop being so light and magical, and you start recognizing that it really is about rolling up your sleeves and just being mature at the end of the day. It's not about looking for some satisfaction. It's not trying to be a fucking savior. It's not about trying to be a guru or a teacher or anything else. It's about tearing yourself down to ground level and understanding that we're all getting in our own way. And that's okay. That's okay. It's the only way that we learn from it. We don't have a wide enough perspective to understand that just like somebody going through a self destructive pattern in their own life eventually leads to an insight where they help others, we are collectively going through a generational self-destructive pattern that will eventually result in a collective awakening or a collective recognition, assuming that we don't continue to hit rock bottom, right? And that's really all it is. But it's about feeling what we're feeling and being what we're being, and that's really all it is. But we want there to be a journey. We want there to be something outside of here and now that is responsible for how I interact with here and now at the end of the day. And it's just because that unsatisfying nature of there not being a journey, nobody recognizes that's where fun is. Like a good example, and I've used this before, is dancing. When you are dancing, are you dancing for the end of the song? Are you like, Jesus, we're almost there? Like you're not in any way like amped up for the crescendo and the end of the song. If anything, you'd like the song to keep playing. Play another song. Why? Because the dancing is its own point. Living is its own point, right? And it's not until you actually get into it and you can feel the beat, you can dance along, you actually understand what fun really is. Not egotistical fun, where it's like, this is going to make me better, I'm going to be superior, blah. But actual enthusiasm, the same enthusiasm we had as children when we were playing.
Yeah, like part of me is even wondering if I have, and I know this is just me being like fucking hard on myself, like what that even like what have I even understood what doing something for the sake of doing it is? Like I don't even know. I don't even know. And so in
Yep,
that's
you have. Guaranteed. Remember we were talking earlier today about the fact that numerous things are happening at the same time?
yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you are both fully involved with what you're doing and doubting everything that you're doing. It's all happening at the same time. It really just rotates through moment to moment based on what you're focused on. You've had moments where you're fully present and then immediately you went, oh crap, am I doing the right thing? And it's gone. But that doesn't mean the part of you that's present isn't still there.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, I've gotten good at that. But the experience of freedom, like with that too, like without that journey, I don't it's like we don't understand that there's still like it's like we go through all this shit just wanting it something whatever discomfort we're feeling to end, not recognizing that in the ending of it there's still the potential of it. Like in a spot of freedom there's still the potential to bitch and moan and complain. It's it's as if it's as if I want to get to a spot where there isn't an option of that. It's like it's not even a thing I can grab for, but that's not freedom, right? That's freedom is all options all the time, forever, infinitely. And it's so those things that I've run from in the past will still be options in a spot of freedom because they always have been, and that's the spot I'm in right now. Like everyone is in that spot of freedom right now with all of the options at their disposal, and we have just the idea of a journey and like egotistical journey, and you think about that for a second. It's like, what's at the end of that journey? No options or all options? And is that not where you're at now? Is that not in exactly the spot that you're in right now with all potential options? Like, are you not in that idea, whatever conceptual idea you have of freedom right now, like, of course, being free is going to mean everything is there at your disposal, and the potential for all of them is there always. So freedom isn't this conceptual thing where it's like there isn't the potential for suffering, bitching, moaning, complaining, going through shit, going through suffering, going through things. Like, freedom is everything. Of course, but it's like I thought there was a spot where those don't exist in potential anymore or something.
And now you understand why people believe in God. The hope that something can make all that shit go away. That there is, in fact, a place to go after you die if you just make that thing happy. Where all of that potential to have a complaint, to perceive things negatively, has just been magically whisked away. And you are constantly in a state of positivity all the time. And that's what we're hoping for. It's like, please let there be something more intelligent, more powerful than what the hell it is I'm experiencing right now, despite the fact that we have all the power. Right? We just get caught. That's really all it is. You know, we want someone to take responsibility. We want someone to protect us and save us from ourselves because of all the consequence that we create for ourselves through just a lack of awareness, a lack of responsibility, a lack of willingness to see. That's all it is. Please, God, save me from myself, even though I'm creating that God to do it.
Oh, fuck. Even it's hilarious when you think about the experience of heaven. Like, you have this idea, end of your life, do certain things, get to a spot. Like, what does that look like? Like, in my head it was all, when I was younger and was hoping for that shit, was like there's going to be a spot where everything's just amazing all the time. And yet there have been times where on the surface things could seem amazing, could seem like a heaven type situation, and there's still the potential to suffer. There's still the potential to mull over shit, always, because it's always there in potential. Everything's always there in potential. All the perspectives, all the point of views, all of them. There is no one point of view that you get to that it's like, boom, got to it. Everything's amazing forever now. That's not it at all. And so if you take a second to even sit down and think about the experience of heaven, like, and go through that, like, what would that actually look like? How would that actually play out? Like, you're still interacting. Say, you get to the pearly gates and you walk through all the people that you ever love. You got your favorite people in all of history hanging out. It's still, we're just going through a hypothetical, still, billions, trillions of iterations of permutations of reality up there, except for animals. Animals don't go to heaven. It's only humans that go to heaven. So it's just humans. There's no animals. There's no plants. There's no nothing. It's just, what is it? Just humans in a big concrete warehouse. But it's heaven. But animals don't go to heaven. So that component of our experience here now that brings people so much joy isn't there because dogs don't go to heaven. Oh, but they do. Okay, so now we're changing the rules. Now dogs do go to heaven. Now animals go to heaven. Now there are plants in heaven. There's still everyone, but it's only based on your perspective. It's only your heaven is only the ones that you like. It's only the people that you enjoy going through. But what if there's that person who's super nice over there that kind of fucking annoys you because they're like a little bit too nice? It's like that person's going to heaven too. You're still dealing with their bullshit that's a little bit too nice in heaven. Are you not? Oh, you're not. Oh, so that person doesn't go to heaven because you don't prefer them to be in your heaven. So really heaven is just you and your preferences and exactly what you want. And so because you have this favorite person in the past, say, Jesus, you love him, or fucking, I don't know, someone else who died, say Alan Watts, you love Alan Watts. Just that's who I may pick. It's like, who's to say that out of all the billions of trillions of people up there who have gone to heaven, that they're going to be there and want to hang with you. It's still the same sort of interactions. You still may get those heart palpitations from interacting with someone who you see in a certain way, who's maybe like famous, or like, he plays sports. Say I grew up playing baseball, Babe Ruth, wanted to see him. Still going to be like pangs of nerves going up to talk to him or something, but I'm in heaven. So there is none. But then what exactly am I interacting with? And so, of course, heaven is just this perspective that we maintain in our head, because it's that experience of getting to a spot where there aren't all of the options available. It's only the ones that we enjoy experiencing. And how long does that last? How long do we enjoy experiencing those things? And it's fucking ludicrous when you actually dig in to what that would look like. Of course, it's not this thing that, of course, it comes down to you and your perspective and your desire to feel comfortable. It's fucking obvious when I just took 5 minutes to walk through what that experience would be like. It's actually not so different from here right now. And of course, there's the potential for all of those things. Oh, there's an unlimited amount of resources. Then how are you going to feel better than the other person? If there is no suffering in heaven, then everyone has whatever they want all of the time. And where does that go? There's still, you're comparing yourself to others now. That's how you derive your value right now, is feeling better than others because you feel like you have more. How are you going to have more in heaven? Everyone has everything they want all the time. So you're not going to be able to feel relatively as good anymore. And so would heaven not just be the cessation of the comparison, of the perceived division between yourself and others, between, your idea of yourself versus your idea of everything else? Is that not in potential right now? So you walk through that situation, it's just like, it's hilarious that people hold on to that. And that's, I think, what you were saying before, just about the maturity. It's like, that's fucking child, like kindergarten perspective, thinking that heaven is something, because you don't even take a moment to think about it. You don't even take a moment, a split second, to think about how that actually plays out, because you do take a couple minutes and it crumbles on itself. It's a fucking absurd, but we do it because we want to get to that spot where there isn't the freedom, the true experience of freedom that includes all options and potential.
Yeah, can you imagine an environment where everybody is always in the best possible mood? Sounds oppressive, doesn't it? Like after a while, you'd be like, I just want to bitch about something, especially having to be friendly all the time, that kind of thing. And so when you really break it down, there is nothing more divine than the experience we're having right now. Right? But we like that idea. It's like, well, no, if I'm a nice enough person here, then afterwards I graduate to this place where it's just nice people all the time in the best mood. And everybody who's been really pissy goes to this place where everyone's always in a bad mood and they hurt each other deliberately because that's who they are. Because it's self-defining what you do moment to moment, don't you know? Rather than you consistently having options all the time. All the time. And this is why we rely on structures in terms of morality. Right? If I just do all these things, I'm a good person. It's like, empathy would actually cut all that shit out. You could just recognize yourself in someone else and ask yourself, would I do this to me? A lot of what you would do is change. And that's pretty much it, right? But we're like, no, you got to do these things. These are good things. These are bad things. And we get it really complicated because we lack awareness. Because that's the whole thing, is that the experience that we're talking about, free will, ultimate free will to choose any perception you like of the moment that you are, means that it requires awareness. Like we've talked about the fact that we swing our mind around like a chainsaw. Like we don't recognize how powerful our perceptions are. The fact that you can have a perception based on somebody saying something to you earlier in the day that threatened you, you carry it with you, all of a sudden you are fucking up every interaction you have. And fucking up, I mean, you are just pissing on that person. You're spreading that ripple of being agitated and in conflict just because you're not aware that you're doing it. Because if you were aware of what you were doing, you would go, what if somebody was doing this to me? And you'd stop. And that's really all it is the fact that the alternative to having a very simplistic structure that children can follow to be a good person and get into daddy's good book is to actually be aware all the time, responsible, in the moment, experiencing empathy in a state of uncertainty, because that's the only place that you're actually paying attention. Otherwise, you take things for granted and you tune it out. You tune out everything else that you're not assuming is happening. So why you get blindsided by people and things, because you assume it's not going to happen. If you weren't assuming, you would just not say, like, oh, I never expected that to happen. Why are you expecting anything? Outside of the small amount of comfort that it gives you for a little bit. That's really all it's about. But you see, the alternative is we can be childish and have some parental father figure, because, as much as Christians will say, oh, Sky Daddy it's insulting. No, your entire perspective on God and the universe is fucking insulting. Like, at the end of the day, it's so disempowering, and you disempower every fucking person you can get your hooks into just to validate how you disempower yourself. You're looking for a parental figure. You're looking for someone to take the pain away and protect you from the darkness. You're looking for a father figure or a mother figure or a parent figure. You're looking for a shepherd. You're looking for someone to take the responsibility away from you. And it's because you lack faith. Because you lack the very thing you say you have. Faith in an idea is not faith, it's false certainty. And you cower behind it.
Oh man, it's and like, I'm sure if anyone listening to this has any degree of belief in Sky Daddy, it's the funniest thing, because they just hear that and they start feeling uncomfortable, and so they probably turn the live off. They turn this off because that's what they're running from, is that. And it's so funny they can't even sit through a rational discussion about it, that because they just want to hold on to that hope that it's going to be there, without even looking at it, like without even taking a moment to think about what that experience would actually be like what that is like, what that perspective of that father figure is like, of something separate from them, that's kind of that's got a plan, that's got a thing, that's like, everything will work out because this thing's got my back. Like, it's always that, and it's always just it just at its core, it's an avoidance of responsibility. It's avoidance of responsibility of your experience, like seeing all of the potential options, like the repercussions of paying attention versus not paying attention. Like, that's kind of it, and not being willing to live with the repercussions of not paying attention. And so then you just have to pass it off to someone else, instead of realizing, oh, I'm doing this to myself. I'm holding on to this perspective. I'm doing this. And even, real quick, going back to the thought of heaven, because as you were talking, it hit me like with the feeling happy and feeling good all the time. Like, it straight up sounds like some propaganda out of North Korea. When you dig in to what that would look like, everyone's happy. Look how happy everyone is. Meanwhile, internally, they're fucking miserable. There's all these atrocities going on, but on the surface, everyone looks happy. Everyone loves, the whatever the leader of them are at the time. Everyone always loves them. Everyone always does it. Like, that's the heaven that we think maintain in our head, because we aren't even willing to look at it for what it is, and we just want that father figure to be watching over us, and to allow us to avoid taking that responsibility for the experience that we're having, understanding that it's always me doing it to myself. And when that stops, it's you start seeing others in the fullness of their experience, as opposed to just looking to Lord and Savior to shirk the responsibility. It's like, you're responsible for your experience, for your interactions, for your day-to-day life, and all of the shit that you go through. And you can maintain the infinite number of potentials. And sometimes I get caught in that and the weight of that. Or you can recognize that you don't know, and like that, they all drop, and then it's just no weight. It's that in potential always, the entirety of the all of everything and all the potentials and getting overwhelmed by that, or understanding that you can never possibly know what that will be, and then it falls away, and then there's no weight. And that's the experience I feel like I've been going back and forth with for the last couple weeks, was just like that, and understanding that, oh, I don't know, I can't know. And it like drops very quick, and then it builds up quick, and then it drops quick, and then it's like, yeah, it's just the pendulum, I guess, swinging.
Yeah, that's about the right response to it. It's certainly a response I had. Oh yeah, I guess that's just what I'm going through. Yeah, that's more or less it. It passes, if that helps. Which I know it doesn't really, but you're gonna go through anyway. And I'm happy to be along for the ride. And I know everybody who joins us in the community on these episodes is along for the ride as well. We all get this, to some degree, and we just get it in deeper and deeper degrees. But we have a question that I thought was quite fun, and it allows us to kind of go in this in the direction of what we were talking about each moment existing in potential as a reflection of the perceiver perceived, observer observed, possibility within the all of everything that could ever be. And so, what is after death? And I love this question for a couple of reasons. The first is that so there's two different ways you can look at this in my opinion. Just a quick overview is that look at yourself instead of being an object in the universe as actually being an extension of the universe. So imagine yourself with hundreds of eyeballs on yourself. Okay. And all of those eyeballs are having their own different perspective and experience of what it is that you are going through. Now, you're all of the eyeballs collectively. You're aware of all of them to some degree in some fragment of your giant intelligence, because you have to have that intelligence to process all of this. But every once in a while, an eyeball will just, come up in being and then shrivel back down. And so it's not that you have hundreds of eyeballs, but you have this ongoing process of eyeballs coming to the surface and then disappearing, and new eyeballs replacing them with a slightly different perspective, maybe a different view, maybe you're colorblind or not. And so you, the character, the person that's watching this, are both the eyeball that you look at as yourself, your name, whatever it is you'd like to, you've named your eyeball, and the being that is all of these eyeballs. And so when your eyeball dies or ceases to function, you, the entity itself, almost don't notice. And it's because it's informing what all the other eyeballs are doing and how all of the other eyeballs see, as well as the new eyeball that comes into being. And so humans are this. Everything is this. Trees, plants, animals, it's all just different types of eyeballs for what is an infinite awareness. Now, this all exists within the realm of time. So this is kind of like, okay, so when I die, then I continue on through other people. And that's more or less the case. Yes. And at the same time, no, because that is all in the perception of a before and an after, a perception of linear time. But the universe is non-local. It does not exist without the observer. Okay, so that means that the observer observed is happening outside of space and time. The experience you're having, while it is the experience of space and time, exists in potential beyond space and time. It's just the potential of the experience of space and time. And so what I'm saying is that all that is ever experienced is now. Always, by everything that is the universe aware of itself. And so there is no after death. All of the moments of your life, every life that could ever, will ever, and has ever existed, exists in potential outside of space and time as the all of everything that ever could be. We are the expressions of those potential moments. So they exist forever. The entirety of your life from birth to death exists for eternity. We are all eternally alive within the possibilities of what could be. It's not that we die. Our story is forever a part of whatever could be in the eternal here and now. There is no death.
So, so outside, like when you say in potential, and I think this is something I've sort of gotten, I don't know if even saying I get something makes any sense anymore, but like your entire life existing in potential. And so all of the iterations, permutations of an experience exist in potential. And so, because part of me wants to say, like, okay, so and there is, it's not this, but part of me wants to think there's like a choosing, I choose this iteration that I'm going through. And it's not really me actively choosing as much as me being the expression of the potential of that moment that always is and always will be, because it's not a one track. It's not even a choosing between like, oh, 100 permutations of this potential moment, like even not even a million permutations of how this call right now could go. It's an infinite number of ones that we're expressing, because there's not something to hold on to with that. I want there to be something to hold on to. Like, I'm choosing this thing for this reason. It means this. It's taking me here. It's going there, but it's not that. And so it kind of comes full circle to just you being free here now, and all of them being at your disposal in a sense, like your way of seeing something. There's an infinite number of ways of doing that, infinite number of perspectives, infinite number of emotions or feelings to experience. And we can't even know what they are or what they mean or where they're going or where they've been or what they mean about us, or what any of it is in any way, shape, or form. But we don't, I don't like that. So I come up with a reason, despite it being complete fucking horseshit every single time. I'd rather that than the that uncertainty at all times. That is the freedom. So it's like I'm actively avoiding the experience of freedom by not wanting to handle the uncertainty that's a necessary component of freedom. And so I settle on something to avoid the uncertainty, which is avoiding freedom, which is running back into my little box, into my little prison, as opposed to understanding that I don't have to, that it's not like working out with someone, the father figure guiding me by any means, but it's me finding out, and I'm not separate from the experience itself, but it feels that way sometimes. And that's a component of the infinite potential as well, is the feeling that I'm separate from it, despite that also not being it, but also the perspective of not being separate from it isn't, quote unquote, it either.
I would rather reign in hell than serve in heaven. I'd rather think I have control than just let go. But the experience of division, the perception of division, the only reason that we have such a distaste for it is because we've spent so long getting caught in it without an appreciation of it. But anybody who's ever fallen in love, anybody who's ever, run into somebody and had a moment of empathy, that experience is based on division, on the perception that you were ever apart to come together. And so that beautiful experience of being apart and coming together is experienced because of duality, because of the perception of division, because of the possibility of a perceived separation. There isn't a single story that we experience, there isn't a single experience that we have that would exist if not for the possibility of being separate from ourself, that the observer and the observed are experienced as being different things, despite the fact that it's the observed that is observing. We have the perception that it's not, and that is the gift of our existence. But that gift has turned to poison because it's become a prison. It's become a prison because the perception of separation has gotten so far out of whack, or rather so far from our awareness, let's just say, that we are acting out of fear all the time because of that divisive perception. Because what other response is there to something that isn't you when you have no faith in yourself? When you don't recognize how much power you have, everything scares you because it's not you. So it could be anything, and you have no faith in yourself. Dear God.
Yeah, in order to have that experience of anything, like any sort of emotion, any sort of thing, there has to be the perception that there was something else other than. In order to feel the beauty in, falling in love or connection, there has to be the perception that it didn't exist at a point, that you didn't have it at one point. If it was maintained all the time, there wouldn't be the variation in that experience. But with that, just take falling in love, for example. It requires the perception of division, the belief that you are ever divided from anything in order to feel the depth of that connection. But of course, with that potential depth, there is the potential for that going away as well. Like, the only constant is change. Nothing lasts forever. This too shall pass. All that shit is that in potential, in order for one experience to be had, the entirely other end of the spectrum must also exist in order for there to be the potential of the beauty and the just all-encompassing component of falling in love. There has to be heartbreak. There has to be that. In order to have the potential for heartbreak, there has to be the other end of the spectrum being the beauty in that. In order to feel the emotion of and the euphoria of freedom, of just the letting go, there has to be the potential for imprisoning yourself. We can't have the duality of those emotions, of those experiences, without the other. They're impossible. It can't just there can never just be just a flat neutral thing with emotions or any component of experience. Like, every iteration of every experience requires the other end of the spectrum, requires the potential for the depths of the brutalness of the other end of the spectrum. Like, it's a component of experience, is all of those potentials. And it's like, I just want the one side, but I can't have that side without the other. The alternative is no experience at all. That's the alternative. The alternative isn't a spot where it's just amazing stuff all the time, because in order for that to be, there has to be, it's like if neutrality is here and the beautiful experience of one side of the emotion, it can't just go that way. It spans from here equally at all times. It's not just the one end. It requires the other. And the depths of that, the highest highs or the lowest lows, are informing each other at all times.
You'll notice that the more you're willing to look at all the perceptions that exist within you, all the darker stuff, all the suffering, all the discomfort, all of that fear, all that, the more beauty you see in everyone else. Because when that person comes up to you and they're flipping you off and getting all pissed off and whatnot, all of a sudden you look at the pain that it's coming from rather than the action itself. And you see the beauty in it. And it changes everything. But it really is just about being more aware, allowing yourself to be more aware and dancing with it. It really is. I cannot stress that enough. This is the reason that it is so difficult to get beyond the point of feeling intelligent. It's addictive processing problems. It's addictive trying to find a solution. It's addictive being on a journey. To let it go and recognize that it's all happening regardless of you and your arrogant fucking need to feel like you're the savior of mankind, all of a sudden it turns into joy. And joy turns into love, genuine love, genuine love. Not the love of somebody who validates you or the love for someone who validates you, but a love for the purpose and function that every single one of us is serving without even knowing what that is, just recognizing the completeness of everything. And that's all it comes down to. But in order to do that, you have to stop trying to be in control. I have to stop trying to be in control, which means I need to stop looking at this as a problem to solve and more or less just a challenge to dig into, right? From moment to moment, it's not a place I'm trying to get to. It's alignment with where I am, what I am. And that all comes down to being yourself, which we know. At the end, when you put it that way, you're like, yeah, of course I want to be myself. It's like, do you know how much that means?
Yeah, it's like we don't even know what we're asking for. Like we don't even know what we want because we can't know it until it's there, and the thing that we want isn't even the thing that we want. The idea of the thing that we want isn't the thing that we want. That cessation of it becomes like the cessation of the suffering can very quickly just become numbness. And that's kind of what I was pointing to with the emotions, is that because we're so many people are on just one side of that spectrum, like the depths of suffering, they would take the alternative being numbness over that experience of suffering. But in order to have the potential for anything beyond that numbness, both sides have to come into play. Like the potential for the depths of that suffering is required in order for the potential of the peaks of joy and feeling amazing. And it's like I'm experiencing that as a collective in all permutations of that. And because there's such a striving for the peak, it's like of course there's going to be another end of the spectrum, because it's for me as an individual being on that peak, feeling amazing for myself, as opposed to just the recognition that I'm not just what I think I am. And so we're seeing it both in our own experiences, the duality of those emotions, as well as in the experiences in the collective, the ends of the spectrum. People wonder why, there's so much suffering in the world, because there's so much on the other end of the spectrum, people just craving that just comfort, not an entirety of the spectrum, or being free. It's like if people were striving for freedom and understanding that the entirety of the spectrum that comes with that, they wouldn't just be striving for ultimate comfort all the time, because we think that that's it, like that's the answer, but that's not it. It's just one component of this experience that doesn't do the thing that we think that it does. It's still all there. And so then we would come back to closer to center if we were to be able to realize that this is the entirety. The entire spectrum is it.
It's interesting when you recognize that the problem isn't the ego, it's not division, it's not, the experience of duality. It's just that we've gotten really carried away with it. That's all it is. We've taken the experience and then we've added layers of conceptual dualism on top. Like we've taken the experience of the observer being separated from the observed and created a fiction about that observer. And that is what we're caught in. And this is why we push duality, we push division, and we perpetuate and encourage its growth, regardless of the consequences that it creates, simply because we're not prepared to look at it. This is why the yin and yang is so goddamn important. Right? It's because you're recognizing the nature of reality right there. There's an ebb and a flow to both sides of the perspective, whatever that perspective might be. Whereas, you take the moralistic view of the world, and you start to recognize that it was the actual fiction that there is a such thing as good that has perpetuated and created the existence of evil. Because everybody who's not good all of a sudden is no longer able to love themselves, feel empathy, feel connected, We've enhanced that division by adding to the fiction of duality rather than just experiencing it. You know, there is no good person. There are no evil people. There are people who have forgotten what they are and who they are. They've gotten lost in the fiction to the point where they're strangling themselves and they don't even know the damage that they're causing. People who are feeling clear, people who feel relaxed, whose cup is full, they don't consider themselves to be good people because they're aware that they can do anything. They're aware of how much damage they can cause. That's why they don't. That's not a spectrum of good to evil. It's a spectrum of confusion and clarity.
Because those striving to be good are just as confused as those who are expressing that evil. And they're both existing in potential. And those oftentimes who are striving to be the best are the ones who are the worst, who are the ones that are the most evil, which is quite the bitch. But I gotta run to this
You do.
appointment.
This has been a lot of fun. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. As always, we will be back on Sunday morning, 11:30 Eastern Time for an episode of Dualistic Unity Raw. Do join us on Patreon if you can. It's definitely worthwhile. We do group discussions up to 5 days a week. You get to know the community. If you don't want to do that, you're not quite ready, we do a free group every Wednesday, and we have a free Discord server that you can access through the website. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you again after the weekend.